I am Jeremy Wolf, former MLB draft pick, your host, co-founder, DJ, not DJ, sound effects guy. Oh, amazing. Today is August 24th, and time to get to all the news. An NFL team is about to sell for $9.6 billion. We know this, but the owners have voted or will vote unanimously in 2 days to accept the new Seahawks owners. An NBA team flipped from $1.5 billion to $4.5 billion in 14 months. What is going on in your National Basketball Association? All the news is all the money's moving in, money's moving out, things are going crazy, valuations are going up. We'll talk about it today. A court just hit pause on thousands of college athletes getting a fifth year. 2 big league pitchers just became venture capitalists. The NFL is at war with the company that counts its own audience. And the Dodgers built a TV money machine that quietly reroutes hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Then in today's take, the one Monday lesson under all of it. Every deal has 2 numbers, the headline and the truth is always in the structure and in the fine print. And later, my good friend and mentor and former professor at Trinity University, Jacob Tingle, is going to join us as my school, Trinity University. I love Trinity University. I'm so grateful to have gone to Trinity University. I love it. Not a paid advertisement, not a sponsor. However, I would love Open Up Athletes to sponsor their athletic department right on the chest right here. Whoa. Oh, maybe it's in the works, folks. Maybe not. It's not. But Bob King, if you're watching, would love it there. Let's talk. Yes, Trinity University, where I won a national championship, a Division III title in baseball, and went off to set me up to make $5,000 a year in minor league baseball. At least it's better now. Gemini takes the whistle and Overtime. Overtime named Google Gemini its official AI partner for Overtime Elite and Overtime Select. I'm going to be honest with you. Don't know what Overtime is. Is it that sports company, the sports media company? I have no idea. I saw the headline and we wrote the script and I was like, don't know what it is. What the sponsor is the AI itself. The product being sold is you getting comfortable with AI. Yeah, I guess in a way. I guess that's right in a way. But me writing, so going, what is Overtime? Well, the news is Google AI, Gemini, is sponsoring Overtime. Doesn't really matter what Overtime is. It matters that Gemini is sponsoring it. ESPN Unlimited is live. ESPN's direct-to-consumer app went live on Thursday at $29.99 a month. The bundle didn't die. It put on a hoodie and started charging you directly. I was with a buddy, and he's like, what's ESPN Unlimited? And I was like, oh, it's their streaming service. But what about ESPN Plus? Well, it's kind of their ESPN Plus, and then they have ESPN Unlimited. And he's just like, whatever, I'm going to put on YouTube TV. Isn't that what I've been telling you, folks? Quick at number 3, college volleyball keeps breaking records. ESPN says women's college volleyball posted its most watched season on record. The demand was always there. The question was distribution. The question is, who is going to benefit the most from watching volleyball or from having volleyball on national television? And let me tell you, folks, it's the athletes, it's the organizations, and good on college sports, good on these programs for maximizing viewership on a product that is increasing in its entertainment value. The stock on women's sports right now is low, getting higher, increasing every single day, every single year with every single season and new TV deal. But the stock on women's sports is increasing drastically, and women's volleyball, soon to be women's softball, in the same sort of echelon. WNBA is reaching record amounts of viewers every single day. Yeah, good. Of course. This is amazing for sport. More people watching and participating in sport is better for sport. People. PE is speedrunning sports ownership. The Washington Post laid out the billion-dollar scramble by private equity to buy pieces of teams. When Wall Street shows up to buy the toy was never a toy. The toy was always a toy. Buying a sports team was the goal. It was what billionaires wanted to do at a certain level. Some of them wanted to do other things, or buy the yacht, or buy the real estate. But now, because the investment value and the returns on professional sports teams, I mean, they're flipping like hotcakes. Every 3 years, they're increasing in billions of dollars in value. The question is whether or not the valuation of these is going to pop. And my answer to that is, what is making them go up? It's viewership and their ability to ink every single dollar out of us, the fans, and how they're able to, in a lot of ways, suppress the wages for their employees, their athletes. Now, the contract values are increasing across the board too, of course, but the valuations of these franchises and the amount of money they are making is exceeding the total amount of money at the same percentage that the athletes are making. So they're making uncapped billions of dollars. These valuations are going up, uncapped billions of dollars every cycle. This is just a very prominent cycle, and it's relevant to us in America because everything feels like a slot machine right now. And so we're seeing like these professional sports teams being flipped like you're on eBay and you're just selling things you find at a garage sale. That's what it feels like right now. And that is the way that sport has always been. Sport has always been like this, but now it's more visible and more frequent. And when private equity moves in, it's not just old money, family wealth. Now it's, at least there's a capped ownership percentage in some leagues, right? But like private equity moving in is just seeing this as another like avenue to make a profit, because sport in a lot of ways is uncapped. Are teams profitable? The major league sports are, because they can keep their expenses low and keep their revenue high. But, it's Division II soccer, professional soccer, like, is not, right? It comes down to eyeballs and advertising and whatever, and like Division II isn't. So there's a huge difference between the sports owners and the haves and the have-nots. And the haves are flipping the Lakers from 10 to 12 billion in a couple of years, and the Minnesota Timberwolves from 1.5 to 4 billion in a couple of years. And so it's a lot. Quick hit number 5, sports business gets a late night show. Front Office Sports Tonight set a September premiere. Content about the business of content, either a bubble or a beginning. I'm excited to see. I don't know where to watch it. Maybe just on YouTube. I'm excited to see it. I have been a proponent for a long time of consistent daily live programming. Bill Simmons tried to do like a show on HBO. I think it was like once or twice a week, maybe. And he got guests and he talked about sports, and it was fine. It should have gone a couple of extra years, but it was fine. It was fine. Open Athletes, a show hosted by a former minor league baseball player who qualified for the Olympics, who talks about sports every single day, who brings on guests to talk about sports. That's entertaining. We will be getting a new background soon. We will be getting improvements to this, but it's coming. And I'm excited to see the growth. The reactions so far have been amazing. And who knows, Front Office Sports, fan of the show, might have seen, well, we can do a live daily night show. Hopefully that host is entertaining and has something to say that's important about the things that they are doing. But we'll see. Maybe future friend of the show. This show, presented by Athletes Fund. Athletes Fund. Wow. The venture fund that backs current and former athletes building companies that matter, with capital plus a network that actually gets you. It understands you. That's amazing. Wow. We love Athletes Fund. Athletes Fund. Okay. We talked about this last week. Seahawks sale, $9.6 billion. I think some initial reports were $6.8 billion, or that's just my brain going, maybe it was $6.8 billion. $9.6 billion for the Seattle Seahawks. The biggest number of the week. Well, biggest number of today. Well, we are going to talk about the Lakers. Second biggest number of today. The Seahawks are about to sell for $9.6 billion, and this isn't a rumor. The two NFL committees, finance and ownership, cleared it. The full owners' vote is Wednesday, August 26th in Atlanta. 24 of 32 owners have to say yes, and it's likely that all 32 owners will say yes. The most expensive NFL franchise sale in history if they do. The Seahawks are worth, they just won a Super Bowl, $9.68 billion, and the valuation of these teams is only going to go up. I would say there are others saying in sports media that it's a bubble. Folks, it's a bubble. It's going up. It can't sustain. It can't be like this forever. But how is it? I don't see, and I'd love to have somebody on to talk about how the valuations of sports teams is a bubble, because I don't see the bubble popping. Maybe that's because I'm not a financial guy, just a former athlete who likes to talk about these things. But I'm not seeing the bubble pop. What is the Seahawks going to be worth $4 billion in a couple years? What bubble? Viewership and advertising dollars are only going to go up. Where they're making their money is only going to go up. It's the last appointment television. It's the last thing we have other than White Lotus that we can all watch together on a Sunday. Per Front Office Sports, the sale to a group led by Nero and Vinod Khosla is valued at $9.612 billion. Per reporting, NFL Finance and Ownership Committees unanimously recommended approval. Owners vote in August 26 in Atlanta. The team is sold by the estate of Paul Allen. Per Allen's wish, its proceeds go to charity. Why this matters, and it's not rich people buying expensive thing, other than that is rich people buying expensive thing. Look at the seller. Paul Allen's estate, proceeds to charity. So a $9.6 billion transaction is really an estate moving through its football transaction. And the buyer, Vinod Khosla, is a venture capitalist. The man who spent his life buying small pieces early is buying the whole thing at the top of the market. PE speed running ownership. Does that have anything to do with this? Well, this is the trophy at the end of the hallway, at the end of the life's work. Some sports teams can be bought by younger, usually white, usually men, early on in their career or after they sell a stake in the company that is now worth a couple $1 billion. But this is the trophy at the end of the hallway for rich guys to be in the rich guy room. An NFL team used to be a rich guy's toy, and now it's an asset class with a cap table. And when something becomes an asset class, value stops being about the thing and starts being about the structure around the thing. The same machine that priced the team is the machine that prices your name, the athlete, your audience, your rooms. An NFL team stopped being a toy the day it got, the day private equity started to move in, really. In my view, is $9.61 billion a real number, or is the real one the media deal underneath it? Well, the thing that's propping up all of these sports teams is, yes, the icon and the culture and the history of it and the real estate and the stadium and all of these things. But it's the media, it's the eyeballs, it's the contracts, it's the television contracts that are making the valuations of this as high as it possibly can be. Netflix, Amazon, ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC are all willing to spend to get football. As long as they're willing to spend, the valuations of these teams will continue to increase. As long as people are willing to buy, valuations of these teams will continue to go up. $9.6 billion for the Seattle Seahawks, $15.5 billion for the Dallas Cowboys, their valuation, $12 billion for the Los Angeles Lakers, $4 billion for the Minnesota Timberwolves plus links, etc. $4 billion-ish for the Phoenix Suns. My Phoenix Suns. Find me a world where those numbers are going down. Topic number 2. Your Minnesota Timberwolves flip in 14 months, $1.5 billion to $4.5 billion. The Seahawks are one of the biggest numbers today. This might be... It's an amalgamation of everything we're seeing in all of sport. Sport, as we'll talk about with Dr. Jacob Tingle, is a microcosm of society. It's a microcosm of what we are seeing broadly in culture and sport culture. The Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx are changing hands again. Mark Lore is selling his majority stake to a new lead owner at a $4.5 billion valuation. They're selling at the high. There will be a higher high. But they spent years trying to get the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lynx, and they bought it a couple of years ago for $1.5 billion. The valuation of this team has gone up 3x in 1.5 years. Per Sportico, Mark Lore is selling his controlling stake in the Timberwolves and Lynx at a $4.5 billion valuation. Per reporting, Lore and Alex Rodriguez's purchase was approved just last year, just like the Lakers, at a $1.5 billion valuation. Per reporting, Lore keeps a minority stake and Rodriguez increases his minority shares. How does a team triple in 14 months? The on-court product didn't triple. They're fine. It's the structure. When Lore and A-Rod bought in, they bought the right, the option to control it. Control is the most expensive word in this industry. A minority piece is worth one price. The controlling seat is worth a massive premium on top. They bought the option to control and then sold that control for 3x 1.5 years later. The headline says team triples. The truth is, someone got paid for owning the control. And notice Lore didn't fully leave. He kept a minority stake. That part keeps appreciating. In a rising market, sell the leverage, keep the equity. Most of you, I'm talking to you, the athletes, look at what number. How much do I get paid? These billionaire sports teams owners are looking at how much they control and how much upside are they keeping. While the team increased 3x in value over 14 months, what really matters is what the controlling stake increased in value in 14 months. A-Rod went from a squeezed athlete to a minority owner at a $4.5 billion franchise. So who's next? Who's next on that path? Tom Brady. Troy Aikman. Open athletes. Who knows? It's going up and up. What are we going to hear now? I mean, what are we going to hear next? Celtics were sold for $6 billion a couple of years ago. If you sold them on the open market right now, open market, who's buying it for $8 billion? Some guys don't want to, right? They want to keep ownership of their franchise because now they're in the room. But would it sell for 10? I bet Boston Celtics would sell for $10 billion on the open market right now. No questions asked. But maybe I'm wrong. That's the fun part about the show is I could say crazy shit and we could talk about it. And when I'm wrong, I'll admit it. And when I'm right, I'll admit it. And that's the best part is we get to have this conversation and just talk sports. And that's the best. Today's show presented by Marvelous. Marvelous is where independent health insurance agencies take action. Marvelous believes that local health insurance agencies should have better access to tools that make the things that they do to support their employees much, much, much better. Much better. We're still doing this. It's 2026. We're still doing it. Okay. I think I could get through this without going crazy. Court stays the NCAA 5th-year eligibility ruling. Now the courts. Now the courts. How do I feel about some courts? Now the courts are dealing with NCAA again. A federal appeals court handed the NCAA a win and took playing time away from athletes who thought they could have another year. A Colorado judge had granted an injunction giving a certain class of 2022 athletes a 5th season. The 10th Circuit, 2-1, stayed that injunction, paused it for now. Those extra years are off the table. The class of 2022 athletes. Per Sportico, the 10th Circuit issued a 2-1 stay of a preliminary injunction granting extra eligibility to a certain class of 2022 athletes. Per reporting, the underlying suit was filed by Northern Colorado's Brock Wisney, who alleges the eligibility cap violates antitrust law. Ooh, we love talking about antitrust law on Open Athletes. Per reporting, the injunction was granted July 31. The case continues. Wisney alleges the cap is illegal. The NCAA disputes it. The court didn't decide who's right. Really hit pause. But the business underneath, eligibility is money now. A 5th year used to be one more season of 4 to a dorm room and ramen. Now with revenue sharing and NIL, a 5th year can be a 6-figure year. Take away a year of eligibility and take away a year of earning. Take away the last sporting that some athletes are going to play. This is the window. Literally, we're talking about the window to be in the room. The number of games you're allowed to play is the number of paychecks you're allowed to earn. Read your eligibility like a contract because it is one. The money line for this is a year of eligibility isn't a season anymore. It's a paycheck. Should the years you can earn be capped once players are paid? Right now, things are halted. Things are stopped. 10th Circuit pauses. Hasn't made a decision, but pauses the ability to have a 5th year for the certain class of athletes. We will continue to see what we see from this. The problem is, the point of the problem is, we're still having this conversation. The things that athletes still have to go through at this level are still undetermined. However many years later, X amount of years later from like the NIL or COVID or all of these things that happened to like this particular group of athletes. But because the money is so much, these players aren't one quarterback, and Penn State's quarterback has taken one online class. He might be like a 5th year senior or something. And people are freaking out because like, what does it mean to be a student athlete? We were having this conversation in 2006. It's the same conversation. Are they student athletes? Well, some of them are, but some of them are making $6 million a year doing NIL deals and being recruited like professionals on the open market to participate in that college's sport. There's also, conversation happening about should you, if you go to the NFL draft, don't get drafted, should you come back to college? Should you be able to? Well, we're treating college sports like a minor league, except in ways that make them employees of that minor league. And so these rules are antiquated and good for like this conversation to be happening. But the fact that these rules are still up in the air, and the fact that NCAA and the law and athletes still aren't totally clear. Like, yeah, of course, read your contract, sure. But the conversation is still happening. Decades later, decades after it became like a real national issue. It's been an issue like this for 40 years now. SMU lost their eligibility in like 87 or something stupid a long time ago. 40 years ago. We're still having this conversation about what NCAA athletes are and are not allowed to do. And the NCAA is just feckless. Right now, they're the judge, jury, and executioner until Congress can come over the top. Until a legal court can come over the top. They're making, of course, billions of dollars and blah, blah, blah. But it's so unpoliced. NIL is so Wild West right now. Athletes are being taken advantage of. The conferences are taking advantage of how these deals are done. The teams are taking advantage of how they can just buy certain athletes for certain amounts of money. We're still treating college players like student athletes. Give me a break. I'm so tired of this conversation continuing to happen. Let's create a real system of athletes as athlete employees, just like you would work in the bookstore. Athletes should have market value more than they do with NIL. They should be paid by their team as employees. Pay everybody the same wage because they're all playing the same thing. Fine. But right now it's the Wild West and the NCAA just can't make a decision. And if you're with the NCAA, come on and talk about it. Let me hear your side of it. Because my side of it is you're not able to make a decision 30 years, 20, 40 years later. We're still having this conversation. And it's honestly, it's entertaining, sure. It's a little boring. We keep having this. We keep arguing over the same. Oh, he's taking one class. He's not a student athlete. Have they ever been? Some of them are. Some of them aren't. Some of them want to go get their degree. Some of them don't. This is where you have to go to make it to where you want to get to. It's being treated like a minor league sport. So treat them like you would if they were working in the bookstore. That's a start. So good on this athlete for actually trying to find some answers. We'll see more of this. John Jay and Tyson Ross turn investors. The whole thesis of Open Athletes in one press release. A VC fund called BRKN Par. Two MLB arms joined a VC fund. Broken Par? I almost called it Brooklyn Par? BRKNPAR. Broken Par. Brought on two former MLB players, John Jay, he's played for the Cardinals, Cubs, and Tyson Ross as athlete venture partners, and they're not ribbon cutters. They're not just like, hey, we opened this. Per the announcement, they invested their own money and are doing the work, sourcing deals, evaluating companies, and helping the portfolio. Per the Broken Par announcement, John Jay and Tyson Ross are joining as athlete venture partners. Per the release, both invested alongside the fund and will source and evaluate deals and support portfolio companies. Per the release, the focus is the sports technology ecosystem. Wow, that's where we live. Amazing. Well, I care about two former major leaguers, one an outfielder, one a pitcher joining a fund you've never heard of and cannot pronounce, because it's the model. For 100 years, the athlete's role was to stand next to the product and smile or put their name on a car dealership. You rented your face out, the check cleared, the money ended when the career did. So John Jay and Tyson Ross did the opposite. They're on the cap table now. Many athletes are moving closer to this world and owning the decisions and upside that happens with their money and their fund's money. As we say, you don't have to be Kevin Durant. John Jay was a very good big leaguer. Not a Hall of Famer, but had a very good career, a reachable career. The access you have right now, the group chats, the locker rooms, the brands in your DMs, that's inventory. Most athletes treat it like memories. 31st round, nobody, like me, had to build something from zero, is still building something from nothing years later. And so these guys are taking the money that they earned in their careers and reinvesting it using their window that they still have access to, because they played that long in the major leagues, to reinvest and evaluate companies for that upside. They're not renting their name anymore. They're getting on the cap table. Good for John Jay. John Jay, come on the show. I'm a big fan. Tyson Ross, come on the show. Big fan. Good for them. Athletes Fund is the same model. Athletes coming together to build a venture fund, to evaluate companies to reinvest and deploy back into companies that are started by athletes, companies in sports, companies adjacent to sports, or professional sports teams, or whatever. Because athletes as investors helps A, bring in more investors, and B, brings in more companies that want to participate, because your audience is what they're going to want to tap into. And it's people want to be venture capitalists now, especially athletes who have money in the bank in a lot of cases to spend on it, have put aside to spend on it. Some don't, of course, right? Like, it depends on how much you make and how much you've put away. But a lot of athletes said, I want to save money and I want to reinvest it, and I want to use my audience to do that. And so we're seeing Josh Childress, we're seeing the athletes that are part of Open Athletes and Athletes Fund, we're seeing this conversation increase. And so good for Broken Par. Sorry, I couldn't pronounce that. And good for John Jay and Tyson Ross for leveraging the fact that these guys were former professional athletes, and good on them for doing that. Good on them. The show presented by Esther Health.
Home run.
Esther Health. Healthcare shouldn't feel like a second job. Healthcare is broken. Your people, your employees, pay the price. Esther Health can help you navigate how complicated healthcare is. Healthcare is a problem consistently, and nobody knows how to do it, and you shouldn't have to do it alone. EstherHealth.co. The NFL versus Nielsen. The ratings fight. Fight most fans never see is worth billions. The NFL is publicly angry at Nielsen, the company that measures how many people watch games and TV. Nielsen is changing the methodology right before this season, starting August 31st, and the NFL is not happy. Per Front Office Sports, NFL's Senior Vice President of Data and Analytics, Paul Ballew, said the timing will make measurements muddled for the season. Per reporting, Nielsen changes take effect on August 31st, adjusting how it counts group viewing, connected TV delivery, and Spanish language audiences. Per Nielsen data, the NFL averaged about 18.7 million viewers per game in 2025, up 10% and the highest since 1989. Why does a league coming off its best TV season since 1989? Is that the number? I guess we'll check. Is that what I'm saying? Put a pin in the 1989, but maybe in terms of increase in value. Care so much about the referee of the ratings because the ratings are the product. Every ad, every media deal is priced off the Nielsen reports, count differently, and the audience you sell changes, even if not one extra human watched. Same game, different number, different money. The league's fear is undercounting. Football is watched in groups, at bars, and every uncounted head is a discount. The lesson, whoever controls the measurements controls the price. When you sell a sponsorship off your following, whose numbers do you use? You have to use Nielsen's. Right? I mean, it's an independent third party. If the NFL was like, we're going to do it ourselves, don't you think that they would inflate the total number of eyeballs? If the referee of your value works for the other team, you'll always be undercounted. Whoever counts the audience gets to price the audience. Whoever counts the audience gets to price the audience. The NFL, how it prices its audience, is reliant on a third party that it can't control, and that third party decided to change how they count things, how they count eyeballs, how they count watching. That's a real problem for the National Football League, because how are they going to continue to price it at the highest way they can? And they're going to figure it out using whatever algorithm is in place, etc., etc. But how? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you... There we go. We're our own one-man camera team here. The problem is, the NFL doesn't control how people count eyeballs. So, let's take a look at some of the reporting. NFL still has misgivings about its ratings measurement. Yes. NFL media topper Hans Schroeder carefully fielded questions about the state and league's legacy media rights deals for tens of millions of fans and the 550 advertisers that tirelessly interrupt their game day viewing marathons, except for, well, there are commercials now on 6.5 hours of commercial-free football on Red Zone. Football season cannot get here soon enough. We're specifically addressing the twitchy countdown to September 9th, when the 2026-27 NFL campaign kicks off on NBC. Although the homonymous sport with the much rounder ball plays somebody wrote this? Anthony. Not good, man. Since Spain dispatched defending champs Argentina the World Cup final on July 19th in front of U.S. TV and streaming audiences at 66.4 million viewers, only one sporting event has racked up more than 5 million impressions. 0 points for guessing, but yeah, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, a wholly meaningless exhibition between the Arizona Cardinals and Carolina Panthers. Managed to draw just shy of 7 million viewers on Peacock. That still feels like a lot for a preseason game. Yeah, that marked a 5-year high for the annual scrimmage in Canton. The next biggest television sporting event since La Roja hoisted the trophy was CBS's coverage of Sunday round of the FedEx St. Jude Championship, which averaged 3.79 million viewers. That's as good as it gets off of the NFL season. So often happens during the back half of the summer when vacation travel and abundance of beach days put TV deliveries in a sweaty chokehold. August has basically been lights out for big-time sports. They'll change soon enough, although the inevitable huge ratings that are in store may not be sufficient to satisfy the NFL. Here we go. This is why we see the 1989 number. Despite coming off a 36-year audience high, last year's slate averaged 18.7 million viewers per game. That's just shy of the all-time record set in 1989. NFL execs don't seem satisfied by Nielsen's efforts to measure its media impressions, which is somewhat curious as the rating service's fall 2025 currency upgrades, which were designed to provide a more accurate assessment of in-home and out-of-home viewership, likely played at least some part in helping juice last season's numbers. Baloo said his team was still studying the potential downstream effects of the latest rounds of tweaks that have been made in ratings gathering space. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, how we need to close this section out is, firstly, know what you're worth, and the league is going to try to ink every single dollar. Number two, we will follow this story, but I'm very pleased to announce that we're going to bring on our guest, Dr. Jacob Tingle.
What's up, man?
Hi, Dr. Tingle. How are you, my friend?
Good. I've gotten some kind of error message on my camera that I'm trying to fix. It says that there's some other app that might be using my camera, which I don't understand. So give me just a minute to try to figure this out.
You're okay. We love being live with our audience. We have technical difficulties.
Yeah, this is great.
Do you want to jump out and jump back in?
Yeah, I guess. Maybe I just restarted my computer. I don't know what's going on. Let me do that. Now, welcome to the show, everybody. Great. Give me a second.
Okay. Now you see both of me. See, this is the beauty of live. The beauty of technical difficulties. And I love it. As we wait for Dr. Tingle, a couple of other things to discuss with this Nielsen stuff. Number one, if payments are being made, if money is moving based on how all of this is affected, and the referee doesn't explain how the rules are working, what kind of system is this? What are we doing here? Oh, Nielsen changes the rules, tweaks the rules, and now the NFL doesn't know for sure or not. Any better?
I don't know.
We can go camera off if you want.
It's really ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to restart my whole computer.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, then we're just going to go. Everyone's just going to hear the dulcet tones.
I'll put a photo of you.
Yeah, front. Perfect. Okay. I'll see you in a second.
Yeah, you got it. As we wait for Dr. Tingle, let's talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers. He'll jump back in. We'll hear him jump back in. But let's talk about the Dodgers for a second. The Dodgers' $8.38 billion TV money machine, the nerdiest. I'm a media nerd. I'm a sports nerd. In college, I studied basically sport media. That's what my degree was for, and it cost me a private institution. I went to go play baseball. However, marketing and media really always interests me. The nerdiest and maybe most important, a masterclass in structure. Everyone knows the Dodgers spend like maniacs, but where does that money come from? Why can't others copy it? A TV deal structured to sidestep the league's sharing system. This is reported and broken down by Joe Pompliano at Huddle Up. You can get connected to him on Substack through our our subscribers, openathletes.substack.com. Per Huddle Up, the Dodgers' local TV deal runs about 25 years, and the TV deal runs 25 years, about $8.35 billion, averaging $334 million per year. MLB set the revenue sharing value far lower, originally $84 million, later reset to $130 million. So much of the gap sits outside the shared pool. Per Huddle Up, MLB redistributes a large share of each team's local revenue, so shielding income leaves the Dodgers with far more to spend. How are the Dodgers able to spend so much? According to this, right? Aren't they sidestepping the rule? Are they sidestepping Major League Baseball to keep a larger share of their local TV income? Are they? MLB shares local money to keep it fair, but you share against an agreed value of your rights, not the full check. Per Pompliano, the Dodgers signed a deal worth far more than the value they share against. The gap stays. They pour it into players and facilities and analytics and making their teams better, and 2 straight titles didn't come from nowhere. They made that money, that ability, from a local TV deal. You're not even watching it on the local TV network anymore. How are we doing?
I don't know. I have no idea. I like, this is brand new computer. I don't know I don't know what other device could be using my camera, since I don't have another device app open. But
do you think
whatever?
Do you think it's Google Meet, or do you think we should switch to Zoom? What do you think?
Yeah, it might be Google Meet, but can you do live on Zoom? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Welcome to Technology Tech Hour with Tingle and from Trinity, folks. It's okay. This is why I love doing it live.
This is perfect. Yeah.
Let me create a Zoom right now. Let's pop.
Right.
Let's have you pop into it. Let's see what happens here. Well, as they say, we can cut this.
Yeah. It's probably something where Google Meet is like reading me twice or something. This happened one other time. Some kind of Teams shit too, though. I don't know what's happening. It just literally restarted my computer. It's too bad, because I do have a couple of props I wanted to show you.
We love props.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna share this link with you in the chat. You have access to the chat here on your computer?
Probably.
Okay. We're going to put it in the chat. Click on that.
Okay.
You should pop into the Zoom, and I should be able to see you in the Zoom. And if not, it's a technology thing that we can't fix.
All right.
Okay, admitting you. Connecting. I see black.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get off of the Google Meet.
Okay.
And then see if this works.
Okay.
Seconds away. What the heck, man? All right, that's my.
Okay. Can you see me at least?
I can. Oh yeah, no, I can totally see you.
Okay.
Integrated webcam.
Oh, there it is.
Stop.
We did it. We did it. And totally worth it.
Oh my God. The big reveal.
It's good to see you.
It's me, everybody.
It's Dr. Jacob Tingle here on the Open Athletes Show. After technical difficulties, show already in progress. How are you, sir? How are things? How is being at campus? I miss it. I'll be back in October.
Yeah, it's great. Today is the first day of class at Trinity, and I am on academic leave for the semester. So that means I'm wearing shorts, which feels very weird to be in my office when classes are in session and wearing shorts.
The kids don't want to see your knees, so
It doesn't
something
need
to
to
fix.
happen. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, first day of class, everyone's always there's this jubilant mood around campus. I think the kids call it some kind of aura. That's good aura or something. I don't know. It's something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. The flowers are planted. The tower is chiming. So it's a good day on campus.
The logo is logoing.
Yeah. Well, here's one of my first props.
See, there we go. That's the good logo. That's the soccer logo. We love the tower logo, and people are going to be like, Trinity University, what's that? Let me tell you, folks. It's a top 50 liberal arts school in the state of Texas.
That's it. Yeah, that's us.
We met in the fall semester of 2012.
Yeah.
14 years ago, I took my first freshman year sport management 101 class. And I'm happy that 14 years later, you are now on the Open Athletes show.
Interesting full circle here.
It is full circle. I've always been asking you questions, and so this is actually no different. Much of our show revolves around the money movement in sports. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot happening in the NBA teams are valued at the more so than they ever have been. Private equity is moving in. We're going to touch a little bit on that. Hopefully we can go 15, 20 minutes with you. If you need a hard stop, please let me know.
Yeah, it's good.
In the last 14 years together, how have you seen sports and the money of sports and the business of sport change?
Yeah, lots. I'll just rattle off a couple of them, and then we can go into maybe some like more detail about some of those, right? The rise of gambling, legal gambling, what I call the Los Angeles Dodgers syndrome, and college sports, I think, are the three biggest places where I've seen like some pretty radical, I would classify as radically different ways of doing business since you and I met in that Sport in Society course 14 years ago. There are lots of other little ways I think things have changed, but those are the really big three from my standpoint.
Yeah.
And not any particular, not in that order, just those are the three that came to mind.
Much of our conversation here that I have with our audience and growing every day on our live stream, but also our newsletter, is that I can't yet determine if these things are good or bad. Because I don't know. Am I seeing the same thing happening with the Pittsburgh Pirates, just spending as little as they possibly can and doing the thing that the Pittsburgh Pirates have always done? Yes. And then are we seeing teams that are maximizing their ability to make money and maybe spend back on the teams because they know that championships brings in more money? I don't know. I don't understand. We've seen the valuations increase 3x in the last year for many of these NBA franchises, and the valuations of these teams have increased drastically. I don't have a finger to point. I don't know. I don't know what's happening in sport, and I was hoping that you can help us diagnose some of these things that are happening.
Yeah, I don't know either. I do in some ways. I wonder, especially what you talk about the valuations of some of those teams, like rising through the stratosphere, pretty quicker than they should. I don't know the answer to that, but like I do wonder, like, what were people feeling in like 2006 about the tech industry, or like the housing industry before like 2008 and 97 or 98. Like I've got to feel pretty good about my tech stocks. I do wonder, like, is that where we are? I don't think it's that, because there's an actual product being sold, there's an actual thing. So I don't think it's that necessarily, but it is a little bit troubling to think about so many of the people that are making decisions in sport, like just the kind of almost the front line or mid-level kind of managers, almost have no idea what's going on a day-to-day basis. What I'm saying? And I don't even know that the owners know what they're doing. Because money looks good and let me go get more of it. But is that really? And again, I talk about the Dodgers syndrome. Like, I don't. I think I saw something like it's 100 or it's 1 billion or something that they're going to owe after the life of all of these contracts of these players is paid. And I just don't think that's healthy for the sport. If you have the money, spend it now. Like, so it's like it's making a mockery of a sport that already doesn't even have a salary cap. That's already kind of a mockery. And it's just like you're spending money that you don't have right now. What if you don't have it
Ever.
What's the Strait of Hormuz? Whatever the owner of the Dodgers is, what if their equivalent of the Strait of Hormuz happens and they can't pay those salaries? I don't, right. It's just that's a thing to me that's really actually troubling, where you're spending money that you literally don't have right now, and that we're allowing that to happen. I don't know. It's like the ultimate kind of stock market play,
right?
But you're actually like real people, and what does happen to the Pirates, who historically on purpose underspend, but now they can't even, or the Tigers, who can't even keep your best player, who literally should be your franchise player, but you can't keep that guy because you would be stupid to keep him. I don't know. In some ways I feel like there's some equivalency with like some of the transfer portal stuff. I've got a good friend who's a senior associate athletic director at a mid-major, right? It would be a name of a school that you would know. So I'm not even going to say the part of the country. But what this person was saying the other day that Ohio State and or the equivalent, right, recognizes that the setter on our volleyball team, this volleyball team, is the best setter in the country, and Ohio State and UCLA and everybody missed on her. And so now that this university has invested time and resources into getting her as good as she can possibly be, now that she's a junior, right on the verge of like, we could qualify for the national tournament, which is a big deal if you're a mid-major, right? Ohio State comes and offers her $1 million to go play volleyball at Ohio State. I'm like, but you didn't do your job on the front end to recruit her, and now you're reaping the benefits. And then I can't blame the athlete. I'm going to get $1 million to go play volleyball at Ohio State, a bigger school. And so where is that? I guess that's, to me, is where is that all going? And it just doesn't seem like a healthy direction in either one of those examples, right?
We've talked for a while, decades now, you and me, about sport being a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
Number one, I say that on the show a lot. Can you explain the connection between what you're seeing in sport? We talk about NIL and the money movement, and Ohio State spending millions of dollars for money they're getting from media deals that other teams can't do, and how athletes are able to move because there's no rules and regulations anymore really barring them from making any of those decisions, which I think on the free market is a good thing. That an athlete is making $1 million on their performance. Yeah. But I think, back to your Dodgers example too, right now there are no rules. Or there are rules that aren't being enforced.
Yeah.
And I think sport being a microcosm of society in itself is that a lot of rules that we are seeing both in sport and out of sport are not being enforced. And I think if an athlete can make $1 million, then take advantage of it. But the fact that a school can come in and just swoop an athlete up, the fact that that can happen is, some would say good for sport and some would say bad. But I'm curious your thoughts on how we bring that back into a perspective that our folks can understand.
Yeah, I think, and just I'll kind of get around to that, but just in that very specific example, I think about like, is it really good for the athlete? Yes, I've got $1 million in my pocket that I didn't have. But in terms of their own, like I heard, it was a really interesting conversation 3 or 4 years ago, like right when NIL was like just on the cusp of happening. So maybe 4 years ago. And, the question was about like, okay, so you're an athlete and so you have to go to classes still, right? That's part of your obligation. And you have to go to practice, and you have to go to film session, you have to go to weight room. And unless it's a, pay to watch the grass grow job, if it's a legitimate kind of NIL deal, then you have to do that too. Right? So when are you supposed to be an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old or grow and like kind of have any kind of identity, right? And so you are, in the nature of this show, you are your own entrepreneur. You're going and doing your thing. But what is the foundation? When an athlete is a senior and is in their third university or their fourth university, I just don't think that's healthy for the young person, right? And so I guess if you want to go back to that sport is a microcosm of society from Jay Coakley, who is one of the two kind of big foundational scholars in the area of sports sociology, coined that term. He and Harry Edwards being the two really big kind of godfathers of the field. But I guess for me, there probably been a lot of examples in history where what seems like it's good for labor is actually even better for management, right? If you want to think like just from a Marxian framework, right? Like the owners, the big boss, whoever it is getting more out of it than the labor. Right. And so that's kind of where I think about, the athletes can do things that they didn't used to be able to do, right? Because you signed a contract to go play at Arizona State, and Arizona State could terminate your scholarship at any point in time, right? And the coach could leave at any point in time, and all of those kinds of things. And we should have been paying athletes all along for meals or like whatever, right? There should have been some kind of commiserate compensation. Johnny Manziel should have been getting money that A&M's bookstore was getting for his jersey sales, right? Maurice Claret, all the names, right? Mm-hmm. That should have been happening. And so to me now the pendulum has swung so far, and it feels like, there's all of this great freedom for labor, but at what cost to the individual's own mental or physical well-being? But then also, I don't know, man, I'm just always one of these, like, whatever feels like if labor's getting it, then management's getting even more. Like they're not, something is gonna cut in the way of, Ohio State's still going to be a school. They're going to still make billions of dollars off of their TV contract. And that girl that's a setter, that young lady that's a setter playing volleyball, has got her $1 million. And, whatever's going to happen to her is not going to be as good as what's happening to Ohio State, I don't think. And so, that's where I think about sport being a microcosm of society. That's where we see right now, this huge income inequality gap, right? So, again, the Ohio States of the world and the Sam Houston States of the world, right? This is the upper 1% and the, and the working stiff. That's I see that's playing out and has historically played out, but on this kind of grander scale, because it feels really good to have the athlete get the $1 million.
Mm-hmm. The underlying effects of that aren't being considered because $1 million, because the paycheck is so big.
And again, I can't fault. I mean, if my kid got a call tomorrow from IBM to come offer him $1 million to go work, doing whatever, mm-hmm. and he just moved into Trinity, I'm like, well, okay, go get your $1 million. But IBM's not Shaquille O'Neal one time said he got a $250 million contract. And they're like, you're a rich man now. This is amazing. And he said, I'm I got a lot of money, but the guy who can afford to offer me a $250 million contract, that guy's rich. I just got a lot of money. Difference, anyway. So I can't begrudge the athlete is what I'm saying, but I just don't think ultimately the system is not designed to protect the worker.
No. What happens from here, right? 5 years ago, we're just getting into the NIL world. these big $1 million, multi-million-dollar deals and payments from the university or from the sponsors of that university, from Learfield or whatever marketing intermediary, paying these athletes as paying for their name, image, and likeness. Great on its face. Years later, we're seeing that, the athletes are making money, but they're going from university to university to university. Obviously, they're not, in some ways, student athlete is still a term that gets thrown around, but of course not. In some cases, a Trinity athlete is not making $1 million a year in NIL.
Yeah.
When you see the face of what's happening in college athletics and are working so closely to college athletes in an athletic department and understand this type of thing, what conversations would you have with an 18, 19-year-old right now or their parents about what the next 4 to 5 years could potentially look like and how to best protect and understand like the value that an athlete has in college athletics?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that's that's the, $1 million question. It's so hard. And I think about, again, my son just moved in. He's on the baseball team. We'll see how that goes and how fall plays out for him. But he had choices. He could have gone to, other similarly sized institutions. He wanted a private liberal arts institution to start with. Like, let's get kind of the stuff he wants to study. But at the end of the day, early decision to Trinity. And I said, well, what if you don't get to play baseball there? And he said, I want to go to Trinity. And if I get to play baseball, awesome. Right. And so for me, as a parent and teaching and doing the kind of stuff I do, like, I see significant value in sports, in participation in sport, because like, I think about all of the stuff that you had to go through, right? And from anybody that knows anything about you and your story, like you're a better person for having done that. It would be in some ways awesome if you didn't have to eat like Subway, like 4 inches of a Subway on the bus while you're sleeping to the next town, or hurting your back and all those kinds of things, right? It would be awesome if those kind of things didn't happen to you. But like the story of who you are today is because you played a sport, right? And so the sheer act of playing and participating and moving your body and participating in a team setting and all of those things is wildly valuable to me. And so I guess what I would say is, if I were talking to like the high school senior, I would say, like, really think about why you're doing this. And even if it is you're going to play football at Ohio State, but like, why are you playing football, or why are you playing volleyball? What is this about for you in your life? And I can't answer that for any person, right? But I would just want them to really have an honest conversation with themselves and their families about what they're doing and why it matters to them. And if the answer to that question is because I want to challenge myself and I want to put myself through all kinds of things that other people aren't willing to do, to test myself to see if I can actually play at the highest level, or if I can sprint faster than the next guy, or if that's the answer to the question, that I want to challenge myself physically and mentally in that way, then I would say, go do whatever you want to, then go play at that highest level, go take that NIL money. But why are you playing a sport? To me, that's the kind of the ultimate, the ultimate question. And I don't have an answer to that question. I think each family member or each group of people would need to answer that for themselves. But I will also say, and I think there needs to be across the board more honesty in conversations in terms of what playing a sport means or is, right? So the thing that I'm struggling with right now is, because there are no rules with NIL, we'll just use Coach Scannell as an example, right? Timmy goes and finds a great hidden gem in Arizona, guy, D3 pitcher of the year, and then the next year that guy's gone. So you've built what you could conceivably think of as a 4-year model, and now I've got 2 more years of this guy is the ace of my rotation. And after the D3 recruiting season's over, this guy's gone.
Mhm.
And now what do you do? And you're, of course, he's super happy for the player, and you can't fault the player. But what does that do to anyone's ability to do any kind of future planning? And then, so what does that do? And I have no idea that now I'm going to shift gears because this is what I'm going to say. It would not necessarily apply here, or I don't know. But so now that it is so easy to transfer, so you have a guy that comes in as a junior, or a woman that comes in as a junior to the volleyball team, and the person that came here as a recruited senior, or that busted their behind as a freshman and was ready to get playing time, now you got a guy that was at Furman or Davidson or whatever that's coming to play shortstop, and yeah, he's better. But like, wait, I came here to do this thing, and I was like, I've done all of the things. My turn is next.
Mm-hmm. Traditionally.
Right. And so, but because it's so easy to transfer, and because some bigger school could take your best player, like there's this constant. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I don't know. In the next 4 to 5 years, there has to be some kind of recalibration of that, because I think there's the potential for an entire kind of generation of college athletes to get like lost in the shuffle and not to get the most out of the experience that they could possibly get, because I'm a center back, and the guy that's coming in now as a senior is taking my spot, and what do I do?
Everyone's basically a free agent year over year over
Everyone,
year. Yeah.
right? And so if you're playing the game by like the quote unquote whatever rules you think exist, then like they don't exist anymore. And so it's like, well, like, do I leave Trinity and go play at Mary Hardin Bader because I can play there?
Mm.
Or do I want to be at Trinity and get a Trinity education?
So this thing is affecting Division III athletics then. It has to, right?
It has to be. It has to be. Yeah. Again, because that example with Timmy, that happened, right? D3 pitcher of the year, and the next year is the opening day starter for a Division I team.
Yeah. You can't fault the athlete.
I can't fault the athlete.
Yeah.
At all. But
then it comes down to enforcement, and there are 2 ways I think you can stop this from happening. Number one is you can't transfer, which has its own drawbacks, or you can't play the next year after you transfer. And obviously we would see a significant decrease in the amount of transfers, like it used to be, like the rule used to be.
That's what it used to be, right?
Yeah. But we were talking earlier about the NCAA. There was a ruling in Colorado that it halted the ability for someone to have a 5th year in Colorado. But the fact that the NCAA is so, I called them feckless, and in some ways they are, because there's an unwillingness to enforce decision making. But for the longest time, all they were doing was enforcing decision making, and now there isn't enough enforcement of decision making. And I think it's bad all the way around for the athletes, the programs, the sport, college athletics in itself. But you can't. And now we're reliant on federal governments or the circuit court judge of appeals to decide whether or not a shortstop can play for a 5th year.
It's
which is messy.
And that's the thing, is if the NCAA makes a ruling, then now I'm just going to go sue and get to play my 5th year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I know that the NCAA is spending millions of dollars on court fees every year, right? And so they went from being like an enforcement agency to like a litigation agency,
right?
But what do you do, right? If I say no, you can't play because you gambled, and then this guy goes and sues, and the judge says, whatever, you can play. What are you talking about? Like, I actually am enforcing my rules.
And now someone's coming over the top.
Yeah, and that, and I don't know if that was actually going to happen or not, but the only way that kind of stuff is going to stop is if, that was at Tech, right? So if like, who was it? The Oklahoma, there was like 4 or 5 universities that came out and said, we're not playing Tech in any sport then. Like, that's what needs to happen. And also thinking about sport as a microcosm of society, there would be a few senators on a particular side of the aisle that all they would have to do is stand up and say, we're not going to do this. But their unwillingness to have a backbone is leading to some of the things that are going on in our federal government right now. And I think that's in some ways, like, as long as Ohio State is fine with UCLA doing whatever they're doing, or, again, not those are, sorry, just throwing names out. There's nothing specific with those two. But as long as they allow each other to poop in each other's sandboxes and just pretend the poop doesn't exist, then, I don't know, man.
I'm happy you touched on gambling.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the money from gambling moving into sport. It has always been around sport, and now it is in sport. I was watching La Liga, and Polymarket was sponsoring the outside banner. The gambling has always been a part of sport, adjacent to sport. You could always bet on sportsbook in Las Vegas, and we all knew that the athletes could not participate. But a lot of the things that I talk about as a former athlete is that the proximity to gambling in sport is leading to the temptation of athletes or organizations to participate in these nefariously, right? We're seeing some athletes participating in gambling and getting in trouble if they're being caught. Right now, we only know the athletes who have been caught. The proliferation of gambling and prediction markets and the kryptonization of sport gambling. How can we contextualize it for like our audience of athletes and founders of businesses in sports and people in the front office of professional sports teams? We could say whether or not it's good or bad. I think it's bad. I think the proliferation of gambling in sport is bad on its whole because it takes away from what has never felt totally pure because of the money that's moved into sports. But when gambling is so intertwined with sport, it changes the habits that we have as fans. Because now I gotta deal with them talking about the money line of this game, and it's all on the ticker, and it's proliferated like our viewing, where it used to just be on the outside. How do you see gambling's effect on professional college athletics, even youth athletics, and the eyeballs that, all of these kids know what all of these companies are and are doing, and you can just have it on your phone.
Yeah, I think about like ESPN used to be a news organization, and now it's an outlet to shill gambling. Like, when they're literally, I'm at the gym in the morning, and I'm listening to my podcast because that's what I'm doing, learning about like British history or This American Life or whatever. But I've got the video, right? And then I'm like, the guys who are telling you the score of the game then come out of commercial and like, well, the line is this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you a sports reporter? Like, so the nature of the role of those guys, and that's why some guys don't work at ESPN anymore. They're like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going to be reporting what the line is, right? And it's funny, it's not funny. It's tragic, I think, in some ways. Like, I've got this quote. I wrote a book chapter in a book a few years ago, and this was about the use of instant replay in the NBA. And one of the subheadings, one of the little sections is the impact of gambling on professional basketball. Right. And so I have this little thing about the history from the 40s and 50s. And then 2007, the Tim Donaghy thing comes along, right? Gambling, an actual NBA referee actually gambling on actual games, right? And actually impacting the outcome of the games. Like, that is a nightmare scenario for any sport organization. But insert referee, replace referee with player, replace player with coach. Same thing. Like, anyone that is actually gambling on games in which they are participating is a nightmare scenario. unbelievably nightmare scenarios, because the only reason I watch baseball as opposed to wrestling is because I truly believe the outcome is unknown, right? When I sit down in the ballpark, even if, Randy Hunter Brown is facing like the left fielder from the Oakland A's or wherever they live now, Sacramento, whatever their name is.
Yeah, whatever.
The Athletics. They could still lose. The Astros can still lose that game as they've shown the last 6 days. They got a wonderful done a wonderful job of losing 4 games to the worst 2 teams in all of it. But that's it. And as a gambler, I have to then believe that I'm taking a legitimate risk, right? That the outcome of this is truly unknown. But because it is so pervasive and because it is so easy and because you can get a VPN from wherever and you can do it somehow, like, it's probably also easier for players to hide what they're doing or coaches to hide what they're doing. And again, a missed layup, I could still win the game, right? But I blow the line. And now I've made out, I still get to hold the championship trophy, but is that really did you miss that layup? Or did you miss the layup? And that's where I don't know that's where I'm worried about that kind of stuff. I'm also worried about, like, what does it do to fandom? Like, I think I'd like to think the Lakers will always have fans because they're the Lakers. But, there's tons of people now that only follow the players. Like LeBron, forever, when he left Cleveland the first time, people like fine, I'm going to go support the Heat. And then I'm going to support Cleveland again. And now I'm going to support LA. And now I don't know where he just went. Where is he now? Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
But
trust the process.
They're fans of the guy, yeah. Right? Which I think is also, endemic of, like, I'm not a Steelers fan. I need the Steelers wide receiver to get 15 yards on this play because I just put $1,000 on.
Right.
And anyway, so that's part of the issue for me. And the great hypocrisy was, in 2007 when that case happened, like, David Stern came flat out. It was like, we are, like, no gambling, nothing, or whatever. And then 2014, Adam Silver writes a little thing. It's like, maybe we should put gambling, cast it out from the shadows so we can monitor and regulate it more. Mm-hmm. And now, again, you have ESPN reporters telling us the line.
There have always been sports books in some European stadium, but now having it in America, I could go to the sports book inside whatever arena.
Right.
It's the proximity, the prevalence of it. And it's frightening when I take a step back and we have these conversations about the money movement in sports. We're seeing teams spend money that they don't have.
Yeah.
On a team on winning right now. We're seeing gambling and prediction markets and the crypto. I said earlier, the crypto indication of this.
Yeah.
Targeting a specific population of people. I just think long term, short term, it's not good for when you're watching the World Cup and you see referees making particular calls or you see decisions being made and now you have to question. And it never used to be like that. You used to think, wow, that's a bad call. But now you can kind of question things, whether or not it's true or not. But that's what's in my head. And I'm like, it's not the same anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the other, and getting back to thinking about the athlete, right? I can't remember the number right now, but the level of abuse that, in particular, Division I men's and women's basketball players are getting because of prop betting is really scary. I mean, they're getting kinds of abuse that is truly affecting mental health. Mm-hmm. In like real, like, oh my God, the guy in my English class next door to me that sits in the next seat might
That-
have lost $1,000
Right.
on me, and what's going to happen when I walk into my English class?
Right.
You know, and so that's the other piece, you know, is what say do the athletes have in the proliferation of gambling, because on whose back is the money being won, and whose back, and who's not getting. I mean, you could argue they're getting the rewards in terms of, like, the Kyle Tucker wouldn't be making as much money as he was making if there wasn't gambling money, but he also, it's just an interesting, again, trying to bring it back to the athlete. It's just an interesting to think about, like, who's the real loser here, or I guess maybe framed the other way, who's the real winner?
The organizations and the companies,
Yeah.
and the losers are the fans, who this is getting shoved in their face, and the athletes who, I don't think if you bet on Kyle Tucker, I don't think Kyle Tucker's getting any of that money, but he is in a very roundabout way, because the companies that are sponsoring the leagues,
Sure.
the money is going to make its way back to Kyle Tucker.
Right. Yeah, poor Kyle, by the way.
And that's what people are going to say. Oh, he's making $40 million a year. Like, why do you care? Like, I should be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that is the give and take. That is, like, why this conversation, I think, is important to have.
Yeah.
Which we will need to have at another time, because Zoom only gives you 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Well, I told you I brought a prop, just since we're
Yeah.
you know, this is the
Yes.
confluence of all of the worlds.
For those of you at home, Jose Altuve is Venezuelan Jesus. If you have met any Venezuelan or Houston Astros fan, that's the case. It's very good to see you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all of the work that you're doing. Let's absolutely stay in touch. Let's have you back. These are conversations that the audience at Open Athletes, that audience that we're building, I think that we need to have. We need to talk about the things that are happening in sport, what is happening on the ground to the athletes, what is happening high up to the money that's moving. And I can think of no better person to have these conversations with. So thank you.
I appreciate you having me on, for sure. I'm going to be in England the entire month of October, so maybe we can do an international call, and I can talk about what I've witnessed in some British football matches or something like that. Yeah.
I would love it. Thank you, sir. Great
Thanks,
to see
Jared.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. The importance of sport. Sport, as we talked about, sport is a microcosm of society. Sport itself is the bigger picture of all of the things that we usually see on outside of sport. Sport is just the place that we can talk about these things and visualize these things. And why I wanted to have Dr. Tingle on was because he does a fantastic job in being able to articulate the things that are happening in sport to an audience, to a classroom, to in his writing, to be able to ensure that he does a very good job of seeing the rights and the wrongs. And he does a good job of stating the line between right and wrong. And now the right and wrong is different for everybody. My right and wrong is different than Dr. Tingle's, which is different than yours, which is different than the sports teams, which is different than the leagues, right? But what I've always understood with him and the conversations that we have had about sport being a microcosm of society, or sports effect on society, or the value of sport on society, or sports impact on individuals, is much of what we see, much of what we have to talk about here on the money that's moving in and out of sport. At Open Athletes, I want to draw I draw my right and wrong. I say that there will be no gambling sponsor. If DraftKings were to say, we'll give you $1 million today, I have drawn a firm line that I think that sports, the adjacency that sports has to gambling, I don't want the brand that I am building to be, I don't want the logo here. I don't want to, even though it's $1 million, what would I do? What would you do? I would turn it down. And some would call me crazy. And some would call me stupid. That life-changing money for any organization or any individual, the money would come from gambling, something I see that has negative effects on sport as a whole, individuals, athletes, parents, families, children. I wouldn't want that. Now, does that mean I'm going to stop watching sports because there is gambling commercials? And no, and that's their point. Their point is you're going to continue to watch and participate in the thing that they are doing. In a way, it's sports washing, much like we see with what we've seen from the Saudi PF. People are calling that sports washing to cover up the things that they are doing in sport, or things that they're doing outside of sport with sport itself. We see that from different types of people who are buying sports teams, who are using this to increase the valuation of their own personal assets. What Open Athletes needs to do, the conversations we need to have here, call out things that are happening in sport the way that they need to be called out. I'm not telling you to stop gambling. I'm not telling you to stop doing the things that you're doing. I'm not screaming from the rooftops telling the leagues to stop participating in gambling. But the decision that I get to make in the marketplace of advertisements and money and movement and sports and conversation and athletes is that the money that I make from doing Open Athletes, I don't want it to come from gambling or gambling adjacent products, because I see things differently than they do. I have a difference in opinion about how things should happen in sport. And I want my audience to understand the reasons why I'm making particular decisions or not. Having Dr. Tingle on is a great way to be able to articulate those things in real time, in a real place, to have a real conversation about the money that's moving, because he's not afraid to have that real conversation and to call out the things that need to be called out. And so I'm excited that we were able to have him on, and I appreciate him always for his time and his perspective, and I cannot wait to have him on again to continue to talk about and have this conversation together. You're part of this conversation too, about the things that are happening in sport that are making sport better or worse. And I can draw my line, but it's up to you to draw your line. I can draw my line on right and wrong, and it's up to you to draw your line on right and wrong. Or if you're an athlete, where you want your NIL money, or where you want your money to come from, or where you want your name to be adjacent to. There's so much here. This is just my perspective and my opinion on it, right? I'm a former professional athlete. I've studied this. I've been part of this for many years. And now I get to voice my perspective on it. And this is my perspective. And I, as my grandfather would say, I'm sticking to it. But none of what we say here is forcing you to do anything that you don't want to do. I get to draw my own right and wrong about these things. I get to draw my own goods and bads for sport on this. And I will say very clearly my opinion on those things. Now, when it comes to the decisions that you have to make, that's up to you. And I want to be a counterpoint to all of the proliferation that we see on gambling. I want to be a place where we don't have to see money lines or be tempted by those things. We can have the conversation. We're going to have the conversation, because we cannot have a conversation about sport anymore without talking about gambling. And I think having the conversation is better than not having the conversation. And it's up to you to draw your own conclusions on if you're participating in it or not. And we'll see over time, as gambling becomes more and more prevalent and more lucrative for the leagues and the teams, what the trickle-down effect of that is on the industry itself. And from the looks of it, the valuations of sports teams and the importance of these advertising dollars and the value that advertising has, the clutch that advertising has on sport is increasing exponentially. As we were talking about before Dr. Tingle came on, and we talked a little bit about him, the Dodgers spending money that they don't have yet, spending future money on buying the best roster. All of this feels very connected. The philosophies, the perspectives that we're seeing outside of sport coming back into sport. It feels similar to what we're seeing outside of sport, inside of sport. How were the Dodgers being able to spend so much? It's being reported and worth watching. As Huddle Up says, no accusation. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. The undisputed part is enough. The Dodgers didn't outspend the league. What the reporting is that there's a different structure to it. The Dodgers didn't outspend baseball. They outstructured it. So is what the Dodgers doing brilliant deal making or a loophole that the league should close? And related back to gambling, is participating in gambling, making money from gambling, something that the league should close? Who should enforce it? Who should enforce the participation or the visibility that kids under the age of 18 see in gambling? The athletes, the proximity to it. The Dodgers are taking advantage of how things are structured and what some people are saying are moving just outside the line to be able to stay within the guideline itself. Other teams are either A, not doing it because they can't or don't know how, or B, are not doing it because they want to stay in what they believe is the right way to make decisions about baseball. All of this stuff intertwines. Everything we see in baseball intertwines. Everything is about the real number, the sticker shock to all of this. There's so much money moving in and out. Money from advertising, money from gambling, money from TV deals, eyeballs and valuations going up drastically within 14 months. A baseball team funding their dynasty off of a TV deal structured to dodge the sharing pool. There's the headline, and then there's the real number. Feels like they're never the same. The Seahawks headline is $9.6 billion. The real number is a media engine and a state plan wearing a football team. The Timberwolves headline is team triples. The real number is someone got paid for owning control and kept the appreciating part. The Dodgers headline is payroll. The real number is a paragraph in a TV contract. At the PE, quick hit, Wall Street doesn't buy toys. It buys structures. It buys profitability. They looked at sports and saw guaranteed recession-resistant cash flows just in a jersey. The thing we love so much is the sport itself, our teams. And now we're being bombarded by all of the other things that are happening outside of sport now in sport. We can't have the conversation about the best things that are happening on the field and the athletes themselves. We have to talk about the things adjacent to it. The toy was never a toy. It was a bond with a mascot. The sticker price is for the fans, but the structure is for the owners. And most athletes read the sticker price their whole career. And when a brand offers you a deal, there are two numbers. There's the check, the one you never see, rarely see as a fan. The equity you didn't ask for, the control you gave away, the data they keep, the renewal on their terms. The check is the headline, and the structure is where the money lives. John Jay and Tyson Ross took the piece, not the payment or the name on the likeness or whatever. Mark Lohr sold the control and kept the upside. The college kids fighting for a fifth year learned eligibility is their inventory. Structure only matters if you have leverage. And leverage comes from distribution. You can structure a deal beautifully and have nothing to structure, and if nobody's paying attention. So build the thing people want first, and then don't sign it all away in the fine print. One piece of my own scar at More Than Baseball, our whole fight was structural. Minor league baseball players were making around $3,000 per year. The money existed, but the structure of that, the reason why they didn't have it, kept it away from the players. And so we didn't beg for a raise. We changed the structure. We got into rooms that we had no business being in, raised $2.5 million, and pushed almost all of it back to players. We won by rewiring who the check was allowed to reach. And so the same lesson as the Dodgers, the same as Lohr, structure beats sticker price. Your one action this week, athletes, pull up the last deal that you signed, or the next one on your desk and find the second number, not the check, but who owns your upside, your data, who controls you, who controls the decision to bring you back on. As Dr. Tingle was saying, Shaq was rich. Yeah, sure, because he had that big contract, but the person who paid him was richer. You can't find it. That's because it was written to be invisible. That invisibility is the whole game. You are not the talent in that deal. You are the distribution, and the distribution should own a piece of the outcome, not just cash, but the appearance, and more so than the appearance fee. Participate in the outcome of those things. How can you own your data? How can you make the decisions about who profits off of your audience? I don't gamble. I don't like the feeling of gambling. Anybody can do whatever they want. I don't like the prevalence of gambling in sport, in college sport. Much like we were talking about last week, as doctors were upset that the sponsor of the Big 12 or the Big 10 was an energy drink. They don't want energy drinks that they see are unhealthy in front of kids. I feel the same way about gambling. The prevalence of gambling at such a early point in someone's life takes away from what I was able to experience with sport as sport. And now this is taking away from someone's ability to just watch the game. And now it has to be, well, I have to put $5 on it. And it changes your relationship to the sport itself and money itself when you're seeing those two at such a young age. And so that's why I like to have these conversations about gambling. And I would love to have somebody on to talk the counterpoint. What is the counterpoint between these two things? If you're a proponent of gambling in sport because of whatever reason, or you work for one of these companies, let's have a conversation about it. Because I think there's so much here it's important for us to have this conversation. We have to have the conversation about sport. Open Athletes is current and former professional athletes having the conversation about building businesses in sports. It's about the prevalence and the money movement inside and outside of sports. It is about how the relationship that we have as fans and athletes to sport. The show is about, this community is about people who are building companies in sport, what they need to understand and what they need to know about their participation in sport. How can we help them build a bigger audience in sport? We can't have that conversation about sport without gambling. We can't have it without how the money is moving. We have to have this conversation on a consistent basis. And we're going to continue having this conversation together, you and me, the audience. And I am a fan as well. I'm a fan of sport. I love sport. I want to bring people on that help enrich our worldview about the things that are happening in sport. Some that we may agree with and some that we may not agree with. And it's our job to be able to make the decision that's best for us and our family and our children who we want to bring up in sport. And we are able to, and we are allowed to take stands on the things that we believe in not. We're also allowed to change our opinion when we get more information about the things that we used to believe or didn't believe, or now we are fundamentally able to understand a different perspective and a point of view. I'm able to have an opinion. I have wanted to share my opinion, and that is why I am creating this room to do that. You have an opinion as well about the things happening inside and outside of sport. And I value your opinion, and I hope you value mine, and I hope you value the conversation that we are having here, that we get to continue to have here, because it's an important one. I don't see these conversations happening anywhere else in sport right now. What I do see is that there is a disconnect between choice and outcome. And I think that we think we're stuck in an environment or a place that we may not agree with all of the things that we see in front of it. And we feel like there's no opportunity to voice that opinion, to have these conversations. And it's our job. Our job as sports fans. Our job as fans of these individual athletes to be able to have the conversation about the things that we like and dislike, about the things happening in sports, because sport is important to us. We wouldn't watch, or we wouldn't pay money to go see it. It reminds us of our grandparents and them bringing us to a game when we were younger. And is that purity that we had when we look back on it as a child still there? Or is it not anymore? Now, in hindsight, you can say it's always been like this. But I would say it's always been like this now. It's always been like this now, but only more so. Because yes, there are rules, but there's no enforcement of those rules in many cases. How college athletes are seeing their participation in college athletics is now they're able to get that bag. Amazing. But college athletics is different now that you can go from school to school year over year over year like free agents. Some would say that's good or bad. Some would say good. Let them do whatever they want. It's a free and open market. Amazing. Come on the show. Let's talk about it. Some would say the purity of college sports is gone. Some would say it's always been gone or it's never been there. And that is what's important about creating a space to have those conversations. And I'm so thankful that we have a place to have those conversations where we can agree and disagree, where we can always be respectful of those opinions, but understand that there's a couple different ways to look at every single thing that we're seeing in sport. But we're seeing all of these things outside of sport come into our world of sport view. It's always been like this. 10 years ago was Colin Kaepernick having that conversation with an audience, and you could agree or disagree with it. You could say he went too far and not enough. Everything is polarizing now. Everything is politics now, and everything is gambling now. Even sport. Everything is private equity now, even sport. In this space, we're able to call a spade. We're able to have conversations. We're able to speak openly about the things that we want to speak openly about, the things in sport. We're allowed to change our mind if we learn new things. You are allowed to change your mind if you learn new things. I hear all the time, strong opinions held loosely. Or loose opinions held loosely. I have strong opinions. But I would happily have an open conversation about those opinions if someone were able to show me the facts. Have a real conversation with me about where I might be wrong on some of these things. If you're absolutely pro gambling in sports for all of these X, Y, and Z reasons, I might be strong opinion held strongly on that one, but as an example of the many, many things that we're talking about here, now how does it relate back to the athletes? Well, the athletes are participating in this ecosystem. And if you're an athlete that wants to build in sport, build a company, or use their window to leverage the amount of money that you can make in your career, we have to have these conversations. Where is your line, right and wrong? Where is your line, good and bad? Where do you want your line to be? That is what's important about having this conversation, whether you're building something in sport, whether you are in sport, whether you are in media, whether or not you are so indifferent to sport, but you're entertained by the conversations that were happening here because it's enriching your worldview about things outside of sport, that's okay too. Again, sport is a lens into the things that are happening between us. Sport is a place where they get surfaced. Sport is a place where we can actually talk about these in a vacuum. That's why I love sports. That's why this show exists. That's why having guests on here is amazing. That's why I have the best job in the world. Because I get to talk about these things with you. And I get to come back tomorrow and do the same thing. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Dr. Tingle, for being here. Dr. Tingle, who I've known for 14 years now. And I should have said this to him on the air, and I didn't, and I'll clip this to him. But he's the reason why I sit here and are able to think about sports in this particular way. I've always loved sport, but I never knew that it could be your job. If I wasn't drafted, I actually was thinking about going to get my PhD at the University of Texas in sport management. I've always wanted to do this. This is what I've always wanted to do. And a couple weeks ago, I took the step to do that and said, I'm going to come on here every single day and have a conversation with you about sport. And the fact that I get to talk to Dr. Tingle is full circle, because I always knew I wanted to be doing this. In high school, I was like, senior most likely to be on ESPN. I'm creating my own ESPN. We're creating our own community to talk about these things because it's important to us. And so we're 3.5 weeks in of doing Open Athletes. And it's been one of the best decisions and one of the most rewarding and fulfilling decisions, because it's fulfilling for me a lifelong dream, and that's to be able to talk about sports with you every single day. And I'm very grateful that you have given me a platform and an opportunity to do that. And that's why it's important. Because a former athlete like me, who felt like he had nothing when he got done playing, felt like he couldn't get back into sport or have that conversation again, couldn't value or leverage the opportunity that I had to be in the window myself. Now I get to teach on my mistakes, teach on my failures, bring on people to help athletes do the thing that I did not know I was capable of doing. And I get to talk about with you and have these conversations every single day. And I'm very grateful. That was August 24th. I'm Jeremy Wolf, former MLB draft pick. That was Open Athletes, and we will see you tomorrow.